Hey guys, Adam here with AmericanMuscle.com. Today we're taking a closer look at installing and dyno testing the C&L Racer cold air intake and the Bama Rev-X tuner combo kit available for the 2015 to 17 Mustang GT. Now before we get into things guys, I want to talk dyno numbers. We established our baseline run, then installed our intake and tune, ran it again. So what do you say we take a look at that graph? Now, of course, we strapped our 2015 GT down to the dyno and established a baseline run with our factory intake on our stock tune with just 93 octane in the tank. Ran it, walked away with 382 horsepower and about 359 foot-pounds of torque at the rear wheels. We then, of course, installed our C&L Racer cold air intake with the 95mm Maf Housing, then installed our Bama 93 octane tune, ran it under the same conditions in 5th gear, walked away with 410 horsepower, 388 foot-pounds of torque at the rear wheels, good for peak gains of 28 horsepower and 29 torque, but it's even more impressive under the curve. Now the curve gains come at the higher end of the RPM band, around 5,300 RPMs, and we walked away with 46 horsepower and 45 foot-pounds of torque. Now that is pretty much right on par with what C&L claims you'd get with the Bama 93 octane tune. They claimed about 46 horsepower, I believe 43 torque, so we actually surpassed their claims. So I'm actually very impressed with what we've got going on here, and we see really good gains throughout the entire RPM band, so it's definitely something that would impact driving on the street and make it a whole lot more enjoyable. Taking a closer look at this one, this particular C&L Racer cold air intake should be interesting to you guys if you want to pick up a larger Maf housing. This one's got a 95mm billet aluminum housing built in here that you can swap your factory Maf sensor right into, and it's got a pretty unique heat shield. Most of the time the heat shield goes underneath of your new filter, it wraps around and has weather stripping to seal it up under the hood. This one has a little bit more of a unique filter housing. This heat shield wraps around the top end of your filter here from C&L, blocks out all the excess engine bay heat, but leaves that tunnel open to pull in cold air from the front grille. So that's pretty unique to the C&L option here. It also has a washable and reusable oiled filter that will break down in detail in just a little bit. Because that does have the 95mm housing, it does require a tune, which makes it a really good reason to pick up the combo kit. Bama's Rev-X tuner here comes with a number of other features, but mainly it's going to come with two custom tunes, 87 octane and 93, to maximize the gains of not only your intake, but any other mod you may have on your 15 GT. This is also going to enroll you in the Free Tunes for Life program, so anytime you add new mods in the future, you hit up Bama, they'll write you the new tune for free, as long as you have this tuner and that vehicle paired. Now the whole kit is going to come in right around $750, making it a pretty good price for a tune required intake that needs a tune anyway. Might as well get that convenient kit. The install is going to get 1 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty meter here. If you want to do so, you can tackle it in about an hour, maybe 2 from start to finish, depending on your experience, but really simple hand tools will do the trick. I'm going to walk you through every step of the process, starting with our intake, then jumping over to our tune. So what do you say we get started? Tools used in this install include an impact gun, 3/8 ratchet, an extension, 7, 8, 10, 11, and 17mm deep sockets, a T15 Torx bit, and a Phillips head screwdriver. All right guys, first step here is to remove the battery cover. So we're just gonna pop that off. If you guys have some of those push pin clips, there's an open hole here and here. Ours are already removed, so I'm just gonna set this out of the way. Grab your 17mm deep socket and your impact gun and remove the 2 bolts on each side, holding on your strut tower brace. Starting on your passenger side, we're going to pop the strut tower brace off. Now, as you can see, the positive terminal wire is in the way, so you want to make sure you're lifting up and away from that. All right, and set it aside. Now we can take our engine cover off. Now for this, you're really just lifting straight up. There are 4 little pins holding it in. You just pop them out of place, set that aside. Next up, we're going to disconnect our mass airflow sensor. You want to go underneath, pull back the red locking tab, pinch, and disconnect. Here's that red locking tab. Really just go push down and pull back on it and it'll unlock. Next up, we have 4 PCV hoses that are connected to the air intake tubing. We're just gonna pull back and disconnect all of them. Some of them may have a little locking tab, like this one here has a little gray tab you pull back to disconnect. And finally, our sound tube. Grab your 7mm socket and you're gonna loosen up the clamp holding your tubing to the throttle body. Now there might be a couple hoses in the way, so just push them out of the way and loosen that up. All right, now you can grab a 10mm socket and we're gonna remove the bolt holding on your factory heat shield to the inner wheel well. This is one of those situations you just wanna be careful you don't drop it in the engine bay. All right, at this point you can pull back on the tubing to disconnect it from the throttle body and lift straight up, making sure that your MAF harness is out of the way, and pull it out of the vehicle. So we finally got our factory intake off of our 2015 GT behind me, and I want to take you through some of the similarities, but mainly the differences between that and our C&L Racer cold air intake. Now I want to start up front with the filters. Now I took apart that factory housing here to show you guys the paper element filter inside of your factory heat shield, and this thing is a flat paper element. This is a dry filter. It's very commonly used off the factory line from companies like Ford and Dodge and Chevy. So this thing is very traditional, but it also really doesn't maximize the airflow. It's not going to block out all the particles you don't want getting into the engine bay. It really just doesn't do as good of a job as something like this. Now the C&L option is a tall conical filter as opposed to the flat paper element. It's made from a high flow cotton gauze material with a wire mesh outer layer. It's going to filter out a lot more particles than your factory one ever could while pulling in a lot more cold air. That's why C&L even claims a 48 horsepower and 43 foot-pound of torque gain with this combined with our 93 octane tune from Bama. Now this thing is just night and day different. Now the good thing about this is it is washable and reusable. It is an oiled filter as opposed to the dry option here. And that basically means all you have to do is pop it out, wash it, re-oil it, throw it right back in, and you don't have to pick up a new one whenever it comes time for routine maintenance. Aside from that, you're getting a roto-molded tubing here, which is also going to pull in a lot more air, and a heat shield that'll cover the top end of your filter, sealing up under the hood of your Mustang, while also blocking out all of the excess engine bay heat. Now your factory tubing, in comparison, has a little bit more kinks. It restricts some of that more airflow, so with a bigger tubing here from C&L, you can expect an increase in flow. Now the other star player of this kit is the 95mm mass airflow housing that's going to replace your factory one. This one is increased over your factory size, so that means more air, more horsepower, and because this is larger, it does require that tune from Bama. Now, in addition to that, you get new couplers, you get new clamps, new hardware, all of that good stuff that you want out of the kit. You're not reusing any of that factory stuff with the exception of your factory 10mm bolt, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Right now, we're gonna transfer over our factory MAF sensor, put it on our new housing here, and then we'll get started on the rest of the assembly. Next up, you wanna grab a T15 Torx bit and remove the 2 screws holding on your factory MAF sensor. Now, typically you don't really need a ratchet, but if they are a little too tight, you can grab one. But if you just have the bit, you can usually get them out by hand just like that. All right, slide this out carefully, set it down. We can put our factory stuff aside. Next up, grab your 95mm MAF housing, grab the stock MAF sensor, and you're gonna slide that right into this slot here. Now it only goes on one way. If you put it in reverse, the holes won't line up, so it makes it pretty simple. You're gonna take the Phillips head screws included in the kit. You don't wanna reuse the factory ones for this. Those will strip those holes out. Start threading them in by hand if you can, and then grab a Phillips head screwdriver and tighten them down. Next up, grab the smaller coupler included in the kit and one of the clamps. Now the clamps, you just want to make sure you're inserting over the coupler first, orienting it the way that you want. We're going to install that on the side of the tubing that connects to the throttle body. All right, once you seat that down, make sure it's around all of the edges. You may have to loosen up the clamp to get it all the way on. Grab an 8mm socket to loosen that up. Slide that down to the end and tighten it down. Now what I like to do is orient that clamp so the bolt head's facing up, so when it's installed in your engine bay, you can easily access it if you need to. Take your larger coupler, and we're going to insert that over the other end here. right, once you have that in place, grab one of the larger clamps, insert that there, and again, you might have to loosen it up to get it all the way on. Grab an 8 socket, and we're going to tighten it down. Grab the clamp and put it on the other end of that coupler. Now we're going to grab our 95mm Maf housing and install that onto this end here. You want to make sure you're installing it the appropriate way. When you look inside that coupler, you have 2 ends, one on each side. You want to make sure the open end of that Maf sensor is going to be on the filter side. You want the airflow going this way. If you install it backwards, you'll get a check engine light, it's not going to work properly. So you want to look at that, make sure you have it installed properly, and slide it onto that coupler. To make it even easier on you, you want to make sure you're installing it so that the 95mm stamped on logo is facing upward. You want to be able to read this right on top. Maf sensor facing the inside of the engine bay. Grab that coupler, rotate the clamp appropriately, and we're going to tighten that down. Next up, we're going to install our filter on the other end of that housing. You want to make sure you're grabbing the filter so that this chrome little metal strip here in the filter itself is facing downward and you can read CNL properly. We're going to install that right onto the end here, clamp installed over the end as well. Grab an 8mm socket and tighten that clamp down. Perfect. Now we can drop this in the engine bay. All right, grab the entire filter and tubing assembly. We're going to drop it into the engine bay, connecting to the throttle body. Slide that into place, rotate it downward. Now you want to position your clamp. Now I know it's a little tough to see, but I think we're going to have to loosen up this clamp to get it in place. Actually, it slides right on there. Grab an 8mm socket and tighten that one down. All right, now we can connect all of our hoses. We're going to start on the outside. Let's reconnect that. The fittings are already molded into the tubing itself. Just want to make sure it's going to the appropriate one. And finally, the sound tube is going to go to the larger molding here. That just pops right in place there. Grab your Maf harness. I'm going to feed that underneath of the tubing, and we're going to connect that to our mass airflow sensor. Push it down, you'll hear a click, drop the red locking tab. I'm going to slide this around our filter, and we're going to connect it to this open hole here and the pre-drilled hole here on our heat shield, just like this, using the 11mm bolt included in the kit. Put a washer around it, drop that into place. You're gonna grab a washer and put it on the inside along with the little nylon lock nut. You're gonna tighten it down from underneath. All right, grab a wrench and your 11mm socket and tighten that down. All right, now you can throw the engine cover back on and the strut tower brace, and we're good to go. Now that engine cover is just gonna snap right back into place. Set it down, line those mounting holes up, press down up the top and the bottom. Now for your strut tower brace, you want to start on the passenger side and feed that underneath of the terminal harness. Meet the studs, and then you can line that up on the driver's side as well. Grab those factory nuts and tighten them down. Grab your 17mm socket and tighten them down. Repeat for the other side. Guys, the first step, grab the harness included in your Rev-X kit. You're gonna plug it into the OBD2 port under your driver's side dashboard on the left-hand side. All right, once you have that plugged in, grab the other end, plug it into your Rev-X, and we'll get to tuning. All right, once you have your device plugged in, you want to turn on your ignition, but don't start your engine. Go to Program Vehicle from the main menu, confirm your VIN. Make sure your device is up to date. If you're just taking it out of the box, you want to hit continue here to make a device update, but you may need to connect to Wi-Fi. It'll prompt you to do that, so be within range. We've already taken care of that, so we're going to hit skip. Cloud sync. If Bama has uploaded your tune to the cloud, you want to hit continue and download that from the cloud to your device. We've done that as well, so we'll hit skip. Hit continue on the street notice. Make sure your vehicle is in the on position. At this point, you want to select your tune. Now we're going to go with our 93 race for the CNL Racer. I'm going to select that, and we're going to get right into it. Now you want to make sure you're selecting the tune that you want to go with. If you want to go with your 87 octane tune, that'll be an option there, but we're going to focus on that 93 octane. Once you select your tune, it's going to process 0 to 100. It might take a couple of times. It may turn your vehicle on and off a few times. You just want to make sure you're not unplugging the device. It'll also save your stock file to your Rev-X, so if you ever want to revert back to stock, that's going to be an option as well. From here, it gives you a notice that it disables your preloaded tune. You just want to hit confirm. It's the custom tune we're focusing on. It may ask you if you want to make additional changes, things like tire size, gear ratio, rev limiter, speed limiter, so on and so forth. You can make those changes here. We're going to go with our base tune from Bama. We just want to see what it can make right out of the box. So we're going to hit skip, continue to confirm. At this point, it's going to save that stock file and move into flashing. All right, prompts you to turn your key off, press continue. Turn your key on, but don't start your engine, of course. Press continue again. All right, I'll let you know tuning is complete. Hit done, takes you back to the main menu, and you're good to go. All right, now from the main menu, I want to take you through some of those features we talked about briefly earlier. Now, under Program Vehicle at the main menu, you see gauges and data log. Now, this is going to be pretty crucial for the guys who want to track live engine vitals on the fly. Make sure your key is in the on position, press continue. Now, what this will give you access to is up to 8 engine vitals at once. Things like air intake temp, coolant temp, voltage, things like that. So there's just a ton, air fuel ratio. There's just a ton that you can track. So right off the bat, we have 3 gauges. We have air intake temp, coolant temp, and then air intake temp again. Say you want to change the bottom air intake temp to, let's find something that we can use. We'll do measured air fuel ratio bank 2. Hit approve. It'll replace that gauge on the bottom with your new vital. Now, if you went to the right, you can go down to select gauge layout and select up to 8. There's different layouts, some tracking 1, 2, all the way up to 8. You can also orient it so it's landscape instead of portrait mode. So that's, depends on how you want to mount it on your windshield. If you have a windshield mount, you can also just tuck it away in the center console. You can change any of these, and there's a number of them. You can start recording data logs. So you can record your data logs, send it over to Bama if you want to see how your vehicle's doing. If you want to make any revisions, you can do that here directly on the device. You can select stop data log to take you right back to the main menu. So really useful information there. Vehicle functions, read DTC codes and clear DTC codes, otherwise diagnostic trouble codes. Check engine light comes on, plug this device in without needing any separate device. You can pull this up, read the code, have a description, clear it when you're done. Special functions would be cam relearn. Most guys won't need that. So we're at exit. Underneath vehicle info, you click on that, press continue. That'll load your ECU, give you your ECU strategy code, as well as your VIN number, things like that you need from your vehicle, and you can use that to request new tunes. Device info, similar but more on the device side. So serial number, firmware version, software version. It'll let you know how many unlocks you have left, if your vehicle is paired. Basically, you can unlock this from your vehicle and use it with a different vehicle. You have a certain amount of pairings you need to do, so that will let you know how many unlocks you'll have left. You can hit exit there. Device settings, the top 4 is going to be very useful. Check for updates, cloud file sync, upload data log to cloud, and Wi-Fi. So if you connect to Wi-Fi, you can do that wirelessly, of course. Check for updates without having your laptop or computer needed, and cloud file sync. If Bama uploads your tunes to the cloud, you can access them here once you're connected to Wi-Fi. Basically, that eliminates the need to plug in a USB to your laptop, download the file, upload it to the software updater, put it on your device. Eliminates that. It's a little bit more modern technology. You can do it right here wirelessly. Upload data log to cloud goes the other way. If you're data logged on your Rev-X, you can upload that to the cloud for Bama to access and make revisions if they need to. Under that, brightness, orientation, you can change it again from portrait to landscape, theme. Click on that, change it to light blue if you want to switch things up. Dark blue, light red, so on and so forth. And there's other modes as well as a factory reset to put it back to factory settings. From there, back to the main menu, and that's really your Rev-X in a nutshell. Now that's going to wrap up my quick overview, install, and dyno testing of the C&L Racer cold air intake with the Bama Rev-X tuner combo kit with 2 custom tunes available for the 2015 to 17 Mustang GT. If you want to pick up this combo kit, you can do so right here at AmericanMuscle.com.